Hello, hello. How's everybody doing? I know I've asked that question in the room, so I'm asking it online now. So this is our first Thursday that we are totally doing something completely different. Not really. It's not really that different. We're just doing it on a different day, really. I mean, we've kind of been moving towards this for some time. I'm calling it the circle because I haven't come up with anything better. Yeah, it's a place where there are no titles, roles, or hierarchy. Everyone is equal and each voice is important. And I left my glasses downstairs, so I may be holding paper this far away to try and read it. The circle, whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere, and that was Voltaire. He was talking about God. Y'all have heard that quote before, God. Whose center is everywhere and circumference is nowhere. And but this circle is divine. It is a divine, hey, you made it. Divine God spiritual space. And we have some guidelines, and we will share these every single week. The first one is speak from your heart. Listen from your heart. Speak from your own lived experience. Try not to assume others have had the same experience that you have. Make room for the quieter voices and introverts. And if you've already shared, please make room for those, for others in the group to share. If you have asked for advice and there are responses, you're welcome to set a boundary by letting the group know that you've taken in the responses and you'd like to move to the next person. Remember, we are not here to push an agenda. We are here to share and discuss and not necessarily agree, which should make this interesting. Looking forward to that. There will be no shaming, interrupting, or condemning language or behavior allowed. Anyone is welcome to facilitate a weekly discussion, just so everybody knows. And if you want to do that, let me know. There's no set subject, format, or formula. If we all listen to hear, we will leave the circle better than we came in. Now, we've got the housekeeping down. So, this week, Sunday, our last Sunday, which was this past Sunday, the discussion was, who are you? And I want to continue on that with that same question, who are you? And I'm reading a couple of books at one time, and I'm bad about getting books and not getting very far because it just catches me, and then I'm like, oh, the introduction, I can't even get to chapter 1, and that's kind of how it's going with these as well. But I'm reading The Tao Made Easy by Alan Cohen, and the Gnostic Gospels by Elaine Pagels. And this, I don't know if y'all read this, but this is really good. Well, the introduction is good. That's as far as I've gotten. And it's really good. And I want to start the whole discussion because this is not me talking, or this is a discussion. This is for everybody. So what I want to do is I'm really going to need my glasses. Hey, Jack.
We looked everywhere. Do you know where they are?
They should be back on my table.
In your backpack, maybe?
Will you bring my glasses?
Can I find them?
My other ones are on the table where I make stuff. I can't read without my glasses, y'all.
You want these for now?
I'm still working on my ego, y'all.
I really couldn't see the other ones.
So I want to read out of The Tao Made Easy first. Maybe, if we can do this. Page 118. Okay. All right, so y'all follow me here. Lao Tzu sees education and enlightenment from a different perspective. He would say that you are not here to learn something you do not know. You are here to remember what you already know. The spiritual path is not a learning curve. It is a refresher course. You were born knowing, then you were educated out of knowing. Now you need to be re-educated into remembering. The journey of enlightenment is not one of doing, it is of undoing. You must undo the debilitating illusions that have been laid over your majestic self. The goal of living is to become what you already are. These are not mine either. That's fine. And 125. Nearly all educational, religious, and philosophical belief systems define us as students in the school of life. I have heard many people declare, "I am a lifelong learner." When we adopt this identity, we assume we are here to face and master more and more lessons until we graduate. But as you may have noticed, graduation never comes in this lifetime. Your learning curve is so steep that you will have to come back for many lifetimes to master all of your lessons. You are not just a lifelong learner. You are in this for eons, and you may never get off the wheel of karma. Everything you have taught yourself has made your power more and more obscure to you. And this is interesting. I ask now that you consider a radical, even heretical vision. What if we defined ourselves not as learners, but as knowers? Not seekers, but finders. Not students, but masters. What if you were born knowing and you have simply forgotten what you knew when you arrived? What if the notion of being a soul that needs to continually reincarnate to keep learning endlessly is a distraction from the wholeness you already embody? All right, and one more. Education as we know it is a form of seeking. Enlightenment is a form of finding. A Course in Miracles tells us enlightenment is but a recognition, not a change at all. The end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. I know I got teachers in the room, so what do y'all think about that? Anybody?
I love that.
I love that too. I think it's awesome, but we are knowers, not learners. That was pretty interesting to me. And I'm going to move on to the Gnostic Gospels because I want to get all my notes out of the way and just kind of start talking with us, start discussing it. To know oneself at the deepest level is to simultaneously know God. Another Gnostic teacher said, abandon the search for God and the creation and other matters of the sort. Look for God by taking yourself as the starting point. Learn who it is within you who makes everything their own and says, my God, my mind, my thought, my soul, my body. Learn the sources of sorrow, joy, love, and hate. If you carefully investigate these matters, you will find God within yourself. Or quiet. Very quiet. It's very deep. It's very deep. And Jesus says, I think it's, y'all don't quote me on this, but I think it's 1 Corinthians 2, that it's not Jesus, it's Paul, I guess, that wrote it. Who knows the mind of God, but we have the mind of Christ. And that word mind is humanity and divinity. It's both. We have the humanity and the divinity of Christ. Now, one more thing here. Let me see. Oh, I need my glasses. I'm so sorry. Here we go. And this is really awesome. The Book of Thomas.
I ordered that book this morning.
I've got to order it too because I've lost my copy. Jesus said, I am not your master because you have drunk. You have become drunk from the bubbling stream which I have measured out. He who will drink from my mouth will become as I am. I myself shall become he, and the things that are hidden will be revealed to him. Basically, it's saying that the Gnostic Gospels are basically saying that Jesus didn't come to teach us about God, but to remind us that we are God. Okay, and I think that's exactly what it means when where it says we have the mind of Christ. Now the Gnostic Gospels teach that once a disciple has been enlightened, Jesus is no longer master, but identical. You are identical. And I think that's why Thomas called himself the twin. He called himself Didymus because he had become identical to Jesus, because he understood that they were the same. They were both divine and human. How do y'all feel about that? Is that heretical? What is that? I mean, it's
Big.
It's big, yeah. Yeah, it's big. It's anybody?
Everything you said, you go.
Too late. Thread's gone.
It's everything Jesus came to.
Just trying to get somebody talking.
Mm-hmm.
You have something to say?
Okay. What you read, it said that what's his name, Paul?
Paul from 2 Corinthians.
Or Thomas.
Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
It said that he was equal to Christ.
To Jesus. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In the fact, or in terms of what was equal according to what you read. Because if
That was Jesus that said it in the Gospel of Thomas.
Oh, so it's equal to him on, it's still on what level and what term, because Jesus died for all of our sins. Is he on that level, or is he on the level of awareness of we were created in the likeness of God, so we are like God himself because we are from his image? Is it that we're on that level, or the level that he would also die for our sins also?
Well, I mean, that depends on what you believe, I suppose. Anybody? Yes, please.
I think he's talking about the mindset of Jesus and just like Jesus saying that like we are God.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's saying that you are equal when you also realize that or
Mm-hmm.
accept it and I think also like I would love to ask you, but this is like off topic, like what you mean by like Jesus dying for our sins and like what that means to you. But we don't have to go into that right now.
We can go wherever. I mean, we're going to let it grow
It
organically.
means a lot to me.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone here believes, could be talking about Jesus Christ. And I don't know what, I believe he died for our sins. I cannot say for everyone. It means a lot. That's why it raised a question. Even though the scripture said, Jesus said he was on the same level. So I'm saying, being aware of who we are as human beings, as a God who was created in his image, if it's about awareness, or we're on that level where we would die for somebody else's sin. So I mean, you clear it up for me.
Well, you just cleared up for me too. That was awesome. Thank you.
Well, I think it's a matter of purity. That Thomas had gotten to a level of purity within himself to become equal with Jesus. He got past all the hurdles and hills and valleys, and in a human sense became divine within Jesus' life.
And I'll go back to Richard Rohr, and Richard Rohr says that Christ is more than Jesus' last name. And that's kind of what we have to go back to. Jesus was a man.
That's correct, right. And that's
And-
what I think Thomas.
And Christ means anointed. It means the Spirit of God. So when the Spirit of God falls on you, you become Christ. You become the Christ. You become the anointed. You become anointed. You become the same as Jesus. Is that?
It sounds blasphemous.
It sounds blasphemous and heretical, but it's scripture.
If we examine scripture, that should be the goal, to become like Christ. That's the goal.
Yes.
I'm Christian in my foundational beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in the Most High God. I
Mhm.
believe that Jesus Christ came. The Word became flesh. That flesh died for all humanity to be reunited with God, to be redeemed, pretty much.
Okay.
So that is my foundational belief. But I also understand that it goes way beyond what we are taught traditionally.
Yes.
And so what I'm saying is, I guess in a nutshell, and it kind of like, you gotta push past the emotion of what you're hearing and examine the
Yes.
meaning of it. So
Yep.
it's like, the original sin happened because of lack of identity. And the question that we posed tonight is, who are you? And so they were able to be attacked in a way because they did not know who they were. So if God says, the Most High God, the source says, I have made you in my image and in my likeness, both male and female, I created them, right? And something comes along and goes, well, if you do this, then you will be like God. And they're like, cool, I'll do that because I want to be like God. Forgetting they already were, right? So it's like, I don't have to do this because I already am, right? Then we fast forward centuries to Christ, who has to face that same test in the desert, where he's being tempted after 40 days of fasting in the wilderness. And he comes, this is right after he's been baptized, and the Most High goes, this is my son with whom I am well pleased, right? And then the enemy comes and goes, well, if you are the Son of God, then do A, B, C, and D. And he's like, I don't have to do that because I am the Son of God, right? So he's protecting what he knows. And it goes back to that question of like remembering. We have forgotten, but once we remember, we have to protect what we know. And I agree. I don't think Christ came. Yes, he came to redeem. I do believe that. But I don't think he came to teach as much as show. Like, hey, perfection is attainable, and this is how you get to it. This is how you live. This is how you can walk on water as a man. This is how you can heal things that seem unhealable. This is how you can move nations, how you can tell mountains to cast itself into the sea. I believe those things are possible, both in the physical and the metaphysical. But Christ is a way of, hey, let me show you how it's done. And then once you attain that, it is like, I've reached Christ consciousness, which I believe what the Bible is teaching us, how to attain Christ consciousness so that we can be reunited with Source, so that we can spend eternity with Source. I want to say the word learning because I do think it's part remembering, part learning. It's like we are tapped into an infinite source of knowledge, infinite potential, infinite possibility, but only that source can show us how to unleash it and how to use it. So I do want to use the word learn still, but it sounds blasphemy when it's worded that way, but if you examine it, the goal is Christ consciousness.
Absolutely. Did you want to say something?
You are very well versed in scripture, and I am not. So, I personally believe from my teachings that we are all already completely enlightened and Christ-like already. The minute we're born on this earth, it's there, and we just have to knock off the conformity and the learnings and the teachings of all different religions. Get rid of it, and you can look inside. Every one of us here is already Christ, as far as I'm concerned. It needs to be respected and loved. And I think one of the reasons a lot of us fight it is because if we have that within us, who's going to take care of us? Who's going to save us?
Right.
If then all of a sudden you're depending on yourself and the love of you, that you can give and can be given to you from each other.
That's and I agree with that. And like I said, we don't have to agree. That's why we're here. That's why we have this circle. We really want to just hear one another and listen to one another. And it was interesting to me how you were expressing about God and the Most High, and you were separating God out here. And I think that's where duality is born, in that idea that God is out here and we're over here, and we have to do A, B, and C in order to get God here to help us, save us, and enlighten us. And I believe that we are created gods. Is that Proverbs? Psalms. Is it Psalms? And even Jesus says that the Father is in me as I am in the Father, and as I'm in you. And so the duality keeps us separate. And I think that a lot of the theologies do that. A lot of different not scriptures, but like dogmas and stuff separate us and from who we are. I want to read another quote out of the book of Thomas. And I love this one right here. This is one of my favorites. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you, what you do not bring forth will destroy you. And that is probably my favorite verse in the book of Thomas. So I like that one.
You just have to look at me when she says that.
There was also another quote that said, when you are battling with God, you're battling with yourself and vice versa. So,
I think you can only know God as much as you know yourself.
Yes. Yes.
It reminds me of the story of Jacob. You know, when he wrestled with God. You even preached a sermon about that.
Yeah, many times.
He wrestled with himself.
He was wrestling with himself, his higher self.
It's a picture of the same thing, and everything that you've read is really about perspective, isn't it? I mean, it's about what we're looking at.
I actually was going to say, I'm focused on the two descriptors, heretical and blasphemous. And I might suggest it's not either heretical or blasphemous to take an internal exploration to go back to your source. It's just counterculture.
Yeah,
It's
I like
not
that.
heretical or blasphemy. It's just counterculture.
I like that.
It's a culture that we swim in for a while, and we may love it. It may be all about us or a particular person, but I wouldn't assign the concept of an internal journey to discover the original and the original divineness or divinity as blasphemous or heretical. It's simply counterculture.
I like that. I like that a lot. Daniel said, and I think it goes back to Daniel said, how do you define purity? I think you were talking about purity in what you were saying. That I don't want to quote you because I don't remember exactly how you said it, but I can't remember.
Dying for the sins.
Yeah, that Jesus came to purify us or to purify us or whatever, and he was like, what do you define as purity? And then we have I believe Jesus came, died, rose again, and we serve only one God and no other name, and he died for my sins. And that a lot of people believe that, and that's okay. We're not here to discount anybody's beliefs at all. That is not what we're here to do. We're here to discuss. That's exactly right. We're here to listen and talk about our beliefs and what we believe. And all of you, anyone that's been with me at all, has watched me wrestle with religion, because religion was very oppressive and abusive, and made me turn on myself. I didn't like myself very much. I was a sinner. But if God is in everything and everything is in God, then God is the sinner and the saint, right? And God is the light and the dark, and God is, it's broadening and allowing God to be infinite, and allowing God to be in all things, and allowing, God to be bigger than a book, bigger than a dogma, bigger than,
I was thinking out loud about it's beautiful because people like imprison God.
Yeah, it's liberating. Yeah.
And it's like religion kind of separated us from God.
That's exactly right.
One of the main things Jesus taught about was relationship. Like,
Right.
They killed Christ and created religion.
Yes.
So
And named it after him.
And
ironic.
yes. And the whole point he was here to show that we are one with God, and then religion.
He came to break down Jesus came to break down the system that separated us from God, and the system was the church. It was religion.
So the system was heretical.
The system was heretical. Yes. And Jesus came and did a thing, and it turned everything upside down. And then later on, Christianity was born. Jesus was not a Christian. Jesus never converted anyone to Christianity. And that was one of the things that helped me. I was like, oh, I don't have to be a Christian. I believe in what, I love the teachings of Christ. Jesus' teachings are like amazing, especially if you just read Jesus' teachings and you just read the words of Jesus, and it's like, oh, this is, pretty spectacular. He was definitely before his time, I guess. But so are we, because I get called a heretic every day. And a blasphemer and all sorts of things. But
So the path to go back to our original source,
mm-hmm.
the divinity of ourselves, before we have to peel off the layers of the onion. Everything you read early on about the pylon of education or religious dogma or whatever you're trying to shred to get back to the basic of divinity. So is that the walk in the wilderness?
The 40, yes, that's exactly. And I preached this a while back, and I believe that Jesus had his 40 days and 40 nights. I believe it's shadow work. I believe that Jesus went into the wilderness, and who was Satan? Jesus. It was Jesus' shadow. That's what I think. Jesus was battling himself in that wilderness, and he was battling his pride, and he was battling all those things, and they called it Satan. And I believe that when Moses was at the burning bush and I believe Moses had a Kundalini awakening, and that's a Hindu Eastern belief. And he went directly into Egypt. And if you look at it metaphorically, Egypt, the name of Egypt came from the ancient word Kemet. It was called Kemet before, and it means dark land. And if you look at it metaphorically, Pharaoh was Moses' ego. And he went into Egypt and battled with his ego. And he left and won. He won that battle. Well, of course, the ego's not going to let you go that easy, right? So Pharaoh comes after him. He gets to the Red Sea. And, Pharaoh and his army's coming. Moses is standing here. And he cries. Everybody's crying out to God. And Moses is crying. And God says, why are you calling me? Do it yourself. You do it. You get this obstacle out of your way. You can do this. And God didn't do that. God did not split the Red Sea. Moses did that. And that's where he had to battle with his ego, and to get to that place where I am God, I can split the Red Sea, and I can go through. He did the same thing with Ezekiel. He told Ezekiel, do you think these bones can live? And Ezekiel's like, I don't know, you're God. And he goes, no, you do it. You speak life to this death. You speak life to your valley of dry bones. You do it. And in all those stories, God's not rescuing anybody. He's not saving anybody. He's saying, bring forth what is in you, and it will save you. It's like having a child that has so much potential that's really, really good at something, and you have to kind of almost force them to do it. I'm not doing it for you, and you kind of have to make them find their true full potential. I think that's what I see in this whole discussion here. Jesus came to show us our full potential, to remind us who we are, to, after Jesus rose from the grave, they didn't recognize him until he spoke. And it was the Spirit of Christ that they recognized. It was a different body, different whatever, but they didn't recognize him. But they recognized the spirit of it. So when you see someone doing something in love, and you see us, that's Christ. I don't care if it's an atheist. I don't care if it's a Buddhist. I don't care. Any act done in love is done in the name of God. And you can't separate God from love. It doesn't matter what you believe. It doesn't matter what path you're on. I've experienced more love from atheists than Christians beat the hell out of me, with scripture and so that's what I believe at this point in the world. We've got to break down those hard lines of dogmas and doctrines that separate us, because you start talking about stuff like we're talking about, and people get very, very upset.
It's scary.
It's very scary. We were talking a little bit about it on Sunday about not having a label. What do you call yourself? Don't know. Still trying to figure that out. I'm just BB, y'all. Just BB. And I was talking with Llama, and I was like, I don't know what it's like. What do you call yourself? What do you believe? There's no border. It's vast. It's just open. And I think that's true liberty. When you can remove all the walls, all the boundaries, and just let Spirit blow your mind beyond belief, beyond all that, and just be so open to seeing God in everything and everybody, then that's true liberty. And it's scary. We like little boxes, and we like the confines of
I
our.
think you said if you put a label on it, then you're limited.
You're
Because
limited.
Then that's what you expect. That's what it is. But if you don't label it, then you're more open to be open-minded.
Exactly. And that's yes, expectations. We expect things in a certain way when we put it in a certain box.
Looks like all that incense over there, each one of them has a different label, and each incense is in their own little container.
Mm-hmm.
And they're stuck in that container until someone comes and takes that out, and then it becomes incense that burns.
No.
And does the same thing for every single one of them, does the same thing. They're all the same at that point. And so it's the same for us. If we get a label, if I'm labeled gay, lesbian, black, white, then I'm stuck in this little container, and I'm there until somebody decides to. But what if nobody comes along? So I got to do that on my own. I'm going to get out of that conformity, get out of that thing that's crushing me. I've got to get out of that on my own. Yeah. And so in order to survive, in order to live, in order to blossom, to become new and enlightened and fresh and all these things, I just picture a field of flowers just all of a sudden going, you know how they do that where it's really fast, and they film that, and then I love that. That's the neatest thing. That's us. That's us if we let it be. If we let it be. We're going to be that sped up version of this field of flowers and beauty. And we decide that it's safer to be over there in that little container with a label on it because I've got all my buddies around me now. I got all my friends around me. And if somebody comes and takes me out of there, or if I take myself out of there, I'm going by myself. And then somebody's going to like me and burn me. Do you see the fear that can come of all of that? But do you also see the beauty that comes of facing that fear? There's such a beauty in facing that fear, and knowing that you can do it by yourself.
Here's a question I have.
Oh, don't ask me questions. I can't answer questions now.
I talk from here. I talk from here.
It's a question.
It's because I'm on this journey myself of trying to like unlearn, unshed, like truth really.
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
what I'm looking for. But there's a lot of fear,
Yes.
even personally from
Yes.
It's very scary.
But it's like you said, the incense has a fear. Someone's gonna come around, light me and burn me, but that's literally what you were created to do.
That's what you're created to do.
So
exactly.
it's like, why are you afraid to be
what
what
you're supposed to be?
you're supposed to be?
That's a good question.
And what if it's bad, but what if it's good?
But why would it be bad?
Yeah.
Is the question. It's like, why do we even have the fear
Because of how we were raised.
that what we're supposed to do is bad?
Because that's what religion has given
I
us.
have such a
Society.
good thought.
Okay.
Such a good thought. Okay, so I've been thinking about it for like 10 minutes. Okay, I think it's just like, especially, like, I know a lot of us have like a church background. The church teaches us to fear our own power, and there's this, and this isn't, I've never seen this anywhere in the Bible. I've never seen this out of the mouth of Jesus, but there's this very specific thing that they do that it's taken me years to unlearn a lot of what I was taught in church. That really did a number on me. And
Yes, I am. Everybody's looking at me for long enough.
But there's this specific thing that they teach us in the church, that we have no worth and no power and none of that in and of ourselves, and that it has to be external. The only way we can be worthy of anything, the only way that we can be powerful, is if we find that in an outside source.
Yeah.
But that feels safe in a way, because it's like, if we're not the source of our own power and our own worth, then it's like we don't have to be accountable for everything that happens to us. Like,
it takes responsibility off of it.
Exactly.
It does.
So like, we're less responsible for these things, but then once you step into that role of like, yes, like, this is like, my life is a result of like my power and my worth, and what I'm meant to do, that's terrifying. Like, that's really hard, and it becomes more difficult when you've been, in organized religion for so long, because you're taught to be ashamed of like all that you are. So then trying to like shift that and do the opposite and be empowered by all that you are, and like you're talking about the flower analogy, I love it so much. Like the instance that we were talking about labels last week, and about how labels, like, we like labels because they give us a sense of belonging. And it's nice to belong in one of those little jars because everyone around you is just like you, and there's so much comfort in, like, not necessarily, like, I don't want to call it community, but like in being around people that validate who you are. It's easier and less scary to do that than to embrace the multitude that is already within you.
Right. I love that. That was great. Yes, please do.
So I feel like in today's society, people have to have a label to fit in, and if you are not labeled, then you feel unworthy and you don't feel like you're good enough for everybody else in the world. But once you embrace who you are and who God made you to be, then you find your self-love and you find your passions and you find what makes you happy. But if you stick in that label, then you have, you can find your happiness in that label, but if you go out a little bit, then you find yourself more. And if you're, because in today's society, people will judge you by what shoes you wear, or what clothes you wear, or what your hair looks like. But if you love yourself enough to wear what you wear and not care what everybody else thinks, then, that's
Cha-ching.
Yeah.
I think the hard part, though, and especially for the younger population, is, how do you step outside of that, even just a tiny bit? How do you take that first step and say, I'm going to wear a different pair of shoes? I have a hard time as an adult doing that and saying, I have to go buy jeans from, the thrift store or something. But, it hurts.
You have to have support to do that.
And you do. You have to have, and somebody said you didn't want to say community. I like that word, community. I think communities are made up of different people, different things, different beliefs, I think that labels are not. I think a community of people, it takes a village, it takes a community. It's the same thing.
It's like an ecosystem.
It takes all of us to help one another. We have a circle here, and I don't know if you talked about the circles are infinite. They never stop. There's no opening.
There's no end. There's no beginning.
End, no beginning. There's not, and so to me that's a community, is where everything is encompassed within this safe space. Yes, but if you want to take off, I'm going to open a circle and I'm gonna say, and we're gonna be right back here for you when you need us. And you don't, kids today, I don't think get that. If they step outside of their circle, all of a sudden they don't have friends. And that's where my heart breaks for, and and if they're different and they may not have a friend or something, and what that causes a young person to have to go through and to have to think about, and it's scary. Be a young person and gosh, just want to wear a different pair of shoes, but now you're gay and wearing a different pair of shoes. Well, now you're black and gay and wearing a different pair of shoes. Well, now you're a woman and you're black and you're gay and you're wearing a different pair of shoes. Everybody's getting labeled beyond one thing, and it just gets so frustrating and so hard. If you're a young person and you're trying to do that and be yourself, I bow down to you, because right now kids are being taught to learn more about, it's all about me, and they're the ego is truly taking over our young person's mind right now. And
Do you think so?
It's everyone.
Sometimes
It's everyone.
not just
I don't. I'm gonna. I don't.
Go ahead.
We don't have to agree, right?
No, right.
I actually think this younger generation's got it much. They're much brighter. I mean, they're much brighter, and they're like they've got it. Yeah, they've got it. And I'll tell you, I think that the younger ones have got it. Yeah, they're like
And they're doing that now.
I don't think so.
I'm going based on my young people that I have in my life right now, probably, and they're showing nothing.
Two things can be correct at the same time. Because
Yes.
I do think it's every demographic, every age, every class, every group is going to have the people who are the enigmas, and then you're going to have the people who are, I hate using the word unawake. Like, I don't like using that word, but they are uninformed. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's always really sad when I hear about people's religious experience.
Yeah.
Because I've always been in a place where my family outweighed that. So even though we went to church, I was never, like, I've been called a heathen in Sunday school simply for asking questions. But it never offended me, because I always understood, well, you just don't have the answer. Even at a young age, I understand. You're not mad at me. You're not threatened by me. You just don't know. And instead of saying you don't know, but I have to thank my mom and my granddad for that. Like, I have to thank the teaching that I received at home. It was nothing for me to go to school in my favorite purple corduroy pants and wear the knees white. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But I was brought up in an environment that was conducive for individuality, that was conducive for individual thought.
Right.
So it's like, I think it just depends on what the foundation is when it comes to the next generation. Who's teaching who?
I agree.
And have they been exposed to, like, hey, it's okay, one, to not know who you are yet, or not realize who you are.
Not realize. I like that.
Yeah.
My theory is, it's like a seed. Like, if we think about everything else in this world, and we compare ourselves to all of the other matter that we share, a seed has everything in it that it needs to be. Everything is going to be already from conception. So when you plant that little acorn, that acorn already has that oak tree in it. It is the oak tree already.
Right.
You were telling me about the larva. It is the butterfly already.
It knows. It knows that it's going to be a butterfly. It creates what it needs. I mean, it has already created what it needed
and when
to
we
get
come
there.
In, we are everything we already are. We just have to get there. And I mean, time is fluid. Time isn't linear. So it's like, who knows when, where, how we get there, but we already are everything we are.
Right.
So it's just, if you are the kid who likes to wear the weird shoes with the, Bantu knots in your hair, and maybe, you don't really like school. That is what it is.
Right.
But there's no real, at least in the Western environment, there's no real environments conducive for individuality, because we're taught biologically that there's safety in numbers. So it's not just oh, hey, I'm going to tease you because you're different. We are taught that there's safety in numbers, that we're safer in larger groups. But I think we're only safer in larger groups when everyone is operating in the way that they were designed. Kind of like the body of Christ. Let's
Like,
use an
when
example.
it's a
The church
community.
uses. Everybody can't be a pinky.
Right. Also, okay. No, everybody's making such good points tonight. But listen, the thing, the community thing, and the young people, and all of that. Y'all are both right. But the thing is, because I'm 20, so I'm still young people.
You are.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So I think the problem is that I'm very recently out of high school. We're not really taught how to have like a community like this where like everyone can be different, but like those differences work together. We're taught to have categories.
Yes.
Like the labels. And it's like the categories are like everyone in this group needs to be exactly the same.
And that's not how a puzzle fits together, you know?
It's like an echo chamber effect, or it's like, okay, if you get on TikTok, everything on your For You page, they're all going to agree with you. They're all going to have the exact same viewpoint, and they're going to validate that viewpoint. You're never going to change. You're never going to grow. You're going to feel validated. And regardless of whether what you think is like objectively right or wrong, or whatever that means, like, young people have such strong categories of like, everything needs to be the same. And everything that is not the same is bad. And that's not how community functions.
Self-validation is very difficult.
It is.
It's very hard.
Well, you're using the word community, and there's y'all know the story about Jesus being on the cross, and they couldn't separate his garment because it would have destroyed it. It was made out of one thread. It couldn't be divided. It couldn't be separated. So they were casting lots to get that one garment. And I had posted something on, I had a teacup that had Buddha on it, and I took a picture of it, and I posted it on my Instagram, and this woman was like, oh my God, I'm going to pray for you. You're, worshiping idols and things like that. I'm like, I'm drinking tea. What are you talking about? And anyway, so she just kind of went, just totally just slammed me, and just totally went nuts on me. And anyway, so I was looking at that, and thinking about community and unity, and that was kind of the word. And I noticed that unity and community, and although the N-I-T-Y, in the same N-I-T-Y, and that is actually a Hindi word, and it means oneness. It means oneness, and we are all one, and that's what. And you touched on self-love and loving ourselves, and when we truly love ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And see, we think that we're not good because this source, we're sinners. We are sinners. We sin. It does not make us bad. We hate that part. We hate that part of ourselves. And until we can love every part of ourselves, even the bad parts, we're not going to love someone that reminds us of the bad part of ourselves, and we're going to remain separated. We're going to remain divided. And that's one thing. And the person that gets on your nerves the most is the one that reminds you of yourself the most. There's something in that person that reminds you of yourself that you don't like in you. As a general rule, that's not always true, but as a general rule, it is very true. And it makes me so mad to say that, because the people, I'm just like, what is it? And it forces us to look at ourselves. But when we truly have self-love, truly love ourselves, that is what's going to unite us. It doesn't matter if we're, pagan witches or Christian or, I don't even know what to call our BB. And that's kind of because, labels, their labels are fine. You can label yourself. It's absolutely okay to label yourself. But it's as long I don't mind labels. Labels are fine. If I don't label something, I don't know what it is. If my refrigerator has a whole bunch of stuff without labels, I'm just gonna, But
Labels are funny.
I mean, labels are okay. They just
But
don't.
labels are tools and not identities.
Labels are tools and not
Like,
identities.
those
I like
are
that.
signposts to help us get to where we're going, but they are
Mhm.
not who we are.
They
Yeah.
were supposed to be guidance for understanding and comprehension, but people made them
Oh, I made it
law.
stupid.
Yeah.
They tell you don't drink battery acid. I mean, come on, who's gonna drink battery acid?
You
not
would be
great.
surprised.
You would be surprised. Yes.
You're not supposed to eat Tide Pods either.
Exactly.
Yeah. But that trended, yeah.
Like, in case you want to do this, I'm not responsible.
Yeah. That's called liability. Yeah. Liability labels are necessary for businesses. But yeah, and I think that oh God, I had more quotes and I can't find them now. Yes, please do.
So on the topic of young and old people being woke, I believe personally that there's an overall shift in the human consciousness in total. I don't care how old you are, because here we are sitting with people of all ages. I've just heard from Jackie, BB, other people, and then I talked to my 18-year-old brother today, and y'all, he is woke AF. Like,
Everyone's young though.
Hmm?
I mean, everyone's young.
Yeah. I'm young.
Compared to time, what's 90 years?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We've gotten to this point, like humanity has gotten to this point where we are starting to become more aware because of time.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. And
I hope I said nice to meet you. Now that you're talking about
Yeah.
anybody got anything? Thank you, Whit.
I just have a question.
Okay.
This is offbeat, but John the Baptist in the desert, Jesus in the desert, Moses in the desert, Siddhartha under the Bodhi tree.
Yeah.
Are there any examples that you know of or think of in any other faith or something where a woman took that journey off, just took off and found maybe Mother Teresa, I guess. I was trying to think of somebody who just took off and found a person and a voice and a divinity that's female.
I was about to say, I mean, I went outside today and found God. Like, but like seriously,
40 minutes.
I think it's something that we can.
Now, Holly, you could probably speak on that a little bit with Sophia and the discussion that you led a few months ago about Sophia.
Oh gosh, I haven't read any of that in a while, but we talked a little bit about the goddess in the Jewish tradition, in some of the Old Testament scriptures. She was there in the beginning when creation occurred, and her name, she was referred to as Hokmah, I think is how you say it, and Sophia in the Greek when it was translated, but she's the divine feminine. Is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to read this from one of the Gnostic books. Comes from, it's called Thunder, the Perfect Mind. And it offers an extraordinary poem spoken in the voice of the feminine divine power. For I am the first and the last. I am the honored one and the scorned one. I am the whore and the holy one. I am the wife and the virgin. I am the barren one, and I am many, and many are her sons. I am the silence that is incomprehensible. I am the utterance of my name. And this is from one of the Gnostic Gospels.
I'd like to say too, if you go back far enough in religion, pre-Christianity, there were many female gods.
Yes. As a matter of fact, the very first recorded book, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was older than the Bible, dated older than the Bible, and a lot of the stories were very similar to the Bible. They had the creation story, it had the garden story, it had the flood story. Lots of the stories were the same. And it was God, it was goddess. It wasn't God, it was goddess. It was women. It was female. Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting.
No, it was just a thank you.
I was reading this post today about it was a history post about, like, even before Greek mythology, how female deities were very powerful. They were reverenced very highly, And then here comes Greek mythology, like, oh yeah, Hera, she's great, she's powerful, but she's just the wife of the greatest god, and she just keeps getting cheated on.
Right.
And I think it just begins to like spiral from there. But I am curious to know why, like, I guess why the female form in its essence was like made to be smaller.
Because we scare the hell out of men.
You have an answer. I have a real answer. I'm in a religion class right now.
Oh, hello.
Thank you, Dr. Capper.
We love him.
So, according, I wish I could remember who the scholar was. That he did a lot of research about like the original religion.
Joseph Campbell?
I don't think so. I can't remember.
Before this?
But he was his whole theory. He did a lot of study on like the oldest like religious iconography he could find, and the oldest practices. And his theory, and it's very well supported, is that the original religion was like the monotheistic worship of a mother goddess, like Mother Earth, like we've been talking about. And the problem came, because originally we were all like hunter-gatherer societies, which were very egalitarian. If you look at like Native American cultures, stuff like that. Women were revered in those societies. They were very matriarchal, and like so much so that like when women were on their periods, they were left alone to rest, to not be bothered.
Miss those days.
Right.
We still don't want to be bothered.
They were left with like time set aside for them.
Oh.
Yeah, keep going. I'll get it later.
But time was set aside for them because they were so respected and all that. And then what happened was agriculture. Like, I can't remember if it was my religion class or one of my history classes that's got me convinced maybe agriculture is the root of all of our problems. Because, moved from like hunter-gatherer societies, they moved around a lot. There wasn't like they didn't fight with other groups, because if somebody they didn't like was there, they just left. They just went somewhere else because they could just do that. And then agriculture comes along and we become stationary. And that's when disease starts to spread. And that is when men come into power, because then territory became a thing. The need to defend that territory became a thing. So men slowly but surely like rose through the ranks as being like the most important, because they felt like since they weren't like the mothers, like they weren't raising the children, they were more important because they were the ones that defended the land. And so with that power, like they were the ones with the weapons and the training, and they're the ones that went off and fought. Like by basically brute force, they had the power to like, no, like we're the ones in charge now. We're the ones that are important now. And that was kind of the beginning of the end of like women being treated well, and then like feminine deities being revered, because eventually like we shifted to where, oh, men are in charge now.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Farming.
Well, in our history, if you go way back, the original gods in our history were goddesses whose arms went down. And then with floods and famine and earthquakes and so forth, eventually her arms started going up, and the art as it got a little newer, and then eventually they started adding men for probably all the reasons you said.
Yeah, Daniel posted Isis, Ishtar. Like there's so many here. He said, "Can I please answer this?" And he started naming, Hecate and all this. Yes, and the thing about it is in the beginning, the word in Genesis, Elohim, God. In the beginning, God created God. That word God, and there's even a plural. Yeah, we created them in our image, and the word Elohim is gods and goddesses. It's all, it encompasses all. It's both God and goddess, so it's both, which is that's interesting. That's what it says. I mean, and Elohim is used several times in scripture, and that word is God, goddess, both. Yeah, it's plural. It's like, it's not just God, goddess, it's gods, goddesses, deities. it's it's like it encompasses all of that. So
I love that passage because I'm remembering now that Elohim created Adam, which is all of deity created all of humanity. I love that.
Yes.
We're just as diverse as
And
Elohim.
that's exactly right. And the word Adam in Genesis in the first chapter, it means human. It's not a proper name. It's not a proper name until they're separated, until Adam and Eve are separated from one another. Then it becomes a proper name. So it's a different story. They were one. It was both male and female until third chapter. So
Thank you all for sharing. I really enjoyed
yes,
being here with you.
I enjoyed it too. Anybody have anything to say? I've got a mess to clean up. I feel my thing.
I think
Cinderella.
that's in my head. Hold on. Okay, now, okay. I think, I think it's very important for us to remember I am more than anything. I think that's why we can find God in people who don't even believe in God.
Yes.
Because they believe in themselves.
Yes. Because they are I am, and that's important to know. And also, we're here to hear one another and not necessarily agree, and that's okay too. And that's kind of hard sometimes. My exodus from Christianity has been a long one. It's not been an easy one. So the fear has been overwhelming. Because the fear is so ingrained. It was really hard. But I feel more liberated spiritually than I ever have before, and I feel closer to spirit than I have ever.
And I think the key word is spirit and spiritually and spirituality and not religion.
Yep.
There's a difference between, there's just difference between the words, difference between the way it makes us respond and feel and the whole bit. So, and I think it does allow us to love other people more than religion allows us to love others.
I think that often religion or religion, dogma, doctrine, whatever, it limits love, it makes your love limited. It's like, love the sinner, hate the sin. Yeah.
Put the fear of God in you.
What's that?
Or let me put the fear of God in you.
Yeah, the fear of God.
Just so you be saved.
Yeah. And we're taught, and fear. And Scripture clearly says there's no love, there's no fear. Perfect love casts out fear. And so but the contradictions in loving and fearing, it's so I think it's okay to find God outside of a box. And that's what I think. That's my humble opinion. Well, my opinion, I think it's humble or not.
6:30 next week?
6:30 next week. Well, 6 o'clock next week. We're having this next week is 6 o'clock. It will be self-hypnosis. Dr. Bonnie Miller's going to be here at 6 o'clock. And then the next week it'll be 6:30. So we'll.
It's
8-hour drive.
And that is one thing that yes, going within and finding that divine self, and she's really, really good at.
My wife.
So we'll do that next week. Letting go of what I was brainwashed with is more difficult to let go than I would have ever imagined, Sandy said.
You have to be kind to yourself while you do it.
It is okay to disagree, yes.
And that's part of the love, is loving yourself through the good and the bad. Because whenever you go in and search for God in you, you have to muddle through some shit.
Well, you're right. When you go in and search for God within yourself, you have to muddle through some shit, and you have to love the sinner. And the sin. I mean, it's all there. We all have it. We have our own personal Satans. We have our own personal shadows. Whatever you want to call it, we have it. We are all human, all divine, and I think Jung was the one that said a man without a shadow is half a man. So, and a woman without a shadow is half a person without a shadow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys. I think we're gonna go ahead and close. That's an hour, and that's a good start. Good start. So, all right. I hope I'll see y'all next week. We have hypnosis next week at 6, and then the following week it'll be 6:30. Does that work for everybody? Yep. Sounds good. All right, guys. Bye.
Can I purchase